Hello, friends. Welcome to another learning workshop. Today, I bring to you building resilience through acceptance. And my intention through this learning workshop is to help you with a tool that really is very powerful and would help you move out of that circle of stress, which is one of the most core areas when we are trying to cultivate resilience in ourselves. And I shall do this with the help of one of my client stories, a real life coaching scenario, and a case that I and Suman worked with. With all due permissions, let's get started and let me take you on Suman's journey of self. Meet Suman. She is Suman Teneti, and she's a senior lead in an IT firm, handling a team of 7 assistant associate managers. Along with that, she handles key global clients, and with her expertise in it, she has been quite successful in her work. So, when I and Suman met, our coaching goal was basically to assist Suman create a system to balance the workload that was overwhelming Suman. Even though 13 years of experience Suman held, her constant complaint was she felt a bit overwhelmed most of the time. And this was a recent start, like almost past 1.5 years ago, where she struggled with managing her workload. And if you look at it, friends, that she's a quite experienced professional, but this is something that has been bothering her, which is creating a dent in her productivity and her performance. So, Suman reached out to me and we started our coaching journey, and this was our goal. But despite a month of work, I found that we were not making any progress because Suman continued to feel the workload and was struggling with her with the stress that has enveloped her. So I said, Suman, let's take a diversion. And I made a small change. And this is what exactly I'm going to share with you in our session today. You could do it along with me and learn along with me. So we took a small detour wherein I gave Suman a technique to understand what's really is at play. That despite the work that we were doing, the workload or the feeling of overwhelm was not leaving Suman. I asked Suman to draw how she felt. And this is what she came up with. It's like she would describe to me that it would be like a burden, as if uh, as if she's carrying a huge burden on her head every time she's in key client calls. She's taking up some work, and she finds that her energy would half of it is actually spent on dealing with the weight of these stones, which are basically the thoughts and the constant worries she carried in her head. I took this image, friends, just to get you a glimpse of. Imagine yourself as well, if just like Suman, you feel that you have too much of a burden and you feel overwhelmed. It is very similar to carrying a huge stack of stones on our head while we go along doing our day to day workplace or our jobs or our roles. And when I gave a tool to Suman, we learned that there were few other things that actually represented this huge stack of stones. It was like this. She lost her 6-month-old baby. This was just 2 months ago. She was now a single mother because her relationship has ended of 15 years. And while she lives with her octogenarian father, she had an additional responsibility that came to her while she started living with her father of being a caregiver to an elderly parent. Make a note of this, friends, that if you really observe, we started with a coaching point where a person was feeling overwhelmed, not able to manage her workload. But a tool that I shared with Suman helped us come up with this stack of stones and what do we name them. And this is what Suman gave me the inputs. So I asked and I shared this with Suman. In fact, we did this together wherein I draw this figure. And I said, Suman, is this how you feel? You're carrying this burden of loneliness, of a bored, restless, anxious thoughts, grief, anger, and shame. Now, friends, here we did a lot of other work as well. By that, I mean using various other tools and techniques through which we actually came across all these, getting a description of the weight that she was carrying. So once we had this, and I created this diagram for her, she was able to relate to it at a very deep level. It resonated with her 100%. And she said, yes, this is absolutely how I feel. So then I gave her a very simple test. It's called the control test. And I asked Suman, tell me of all these, what is it that you really feel you hold control on? And what is it that you feel is beyond your control? And this is while we figured out the control aspect, this is the chain of reactions in her narrations which came up with. She explained to me how at her workspace, even a small criticism by her client would trigger in her a feeling and emotions which were quite complicated, which led her to behave in impulsive manners. Then she enters her circle of stress. Then she would ruminate and adapt some unhealthy coping mechanisms. And friends, if you look at this, this is a cycle. This has been going on for almost 1 year. Exactly why Suman was feeling overwhelmed with the workload, which she actually thought, wherein there were some other issues at play. And I told her to break this chain, we need to break this point, which I've highlighted in the color orange. And through this, where our coaching took another turn. So that was a cycle, and then back to Suman's state of mind, which is represented through this diagram of she carrying this load and all these thoughts, and almost for a year now. So when we ran another technique of helping her understand what's within her control and beyond her control, what I learned is that out of the many narrations and work me and Suman we worked together on, grief and loneliness were two areas which she seldom exercised any control. The waves of grief keep coming in cycles, and she would get triggered and then she would be back into her cycle of stress. Same with loneliness. It's a complicated emotion. So both these were something that she felt she was struggling with the most, where her energy gets spent the most in order to deal with it. While the others, like bored, restless, anxious, and all, we were the coaching part where we were trying to create a system was taking care of it. Now, friends, one thing that I would like to pause and help you understand here is grief and loneliness. These are not just complicated emotions, but in 99% of cases out of 100, we seldom have any control over it. Her losing a child, a 6-month-old child, end of a relationship, and being a caregiver to her elderly father brought a profound change in Suman's life. And as a human being with her own set of emotions, aspirations, it's not easy for her to really let go of the pain the grief gets into her at different junctures of life, and it comes in waves. Sometimes it's very strong, sometimes it's not really that intense. Even though Suman was aware she has very little control over these two emotions, what she actually didn't knew was the right mechanism that she needs to adapt to deal with things which are beyond her control. So in this session, I taught her a very simple technique, which we often, due to its simplicity, might just doubt how would that help, which was to practice acceptance via mindfulness and journaling techniques. So I said, Suman, now that we have zeroed down on these two things, and also that you do not exercise control over it, as a human being, as long as we are alive, these waves will continue to come and may overwhelm you, which will kind of suck the energy out of you and may leave you exhausted with other complications. But there's a way of dealing with things which we exercise no control over, which is acceptance. And this is again is not just simply being, it's not like resigning to fate or simply giving up or feeling helpless and being okay with it. It is the opposite, where you mindfully sit with those complication emotions as and when they arise. And I gave her this picture, this one second, friends, this picture of this entire stones. I said, imagine this as a weight, and imagine that over a period of time, you pick one stone at a time as grief or as loneliness, these complicated issues of your life that you had no control over, and accept them. Just sit with them and accept them. Instead of pushing it aside, repressing it, Suman chose to accept it. Now, acceptance, friends, also can be through journaling, because not everyone may find it practicing it through mindfulness, guided meditations, or practice of mindfulness. So, in her case, even though I taught her both, she found journaling was something way more effective for her. So I said, fine, every time you have this wave of grief and this things which come up inside you and you feel overwhelmed, sit with it and journal about it. Write down your thoughts on paper. And towards the end of it, simply just write, I have decided to accept it. As you hear this, friends, this might sound very, very simple, but believe me, it's very powerful. And as Suman went on practicing this particular technique, which was a combination of mindfulness technique and journaling, with a few more tools that I helped her simply accept. One biggest change that she found was the very thought of, instead of fighting or resisting those emotions like grief and loneliness, just opening herself up to concept of acceptance. I have one more short video on this. I shall share that link below. It has another technique, a practice, and along with this, if you want to try that, because that was also something that I shared with her, with Suman, and she did that. In fact, she's been practicing it for a long time. So I'll share the link in the description box. You could try that as well. And with a regular practice, almost 6 months passed by. Suman, when I met her after 6 months, even though our coaching assignment ended 3 months, but the remaining three we had a mini session of accountability. And I asked her, post 6 months, this is how the weight of, the diagram of stones, which was a heavy stack of stones, was reduced. Now, one thing I would also like to share here, friends, is that not necessarily we may experience the same result as Suman did. However, practice can bring in the desired change you're looking for. And when you put in these powerful practice of mindfulness, journaling, along with that technique that I've just shared in the description box, and a sincere practice of that, for some people may bring in an immediate change, like in case of Suman, in 6 months she was able to really reduce that intensity to just like 2 pebbles weight. For others, it might take a little longer, but be kind towards yourself and be compassionate towards yourself, along with practicing this powerful practice of acceptance, where you take in one day at a time and sit with it and accept it. And over a period of time, the grief, the loneliness, these two emotions, they are not going to go away. Sometimes they stay with us our entire life. But the intensity, where they were blocking Suman's productivity, making her feel overwhelmed and taking her energy out, draining her of her energy to perform, to live a healthy life, was put to rest. She was now back as a very energetic, positive employee with her renewed energy and high performance, quite happy, but at the same time still living with those emotions which were beyond her control. Because now Suman has learned that through this practice of acceptance, we just don't get rid of it, but we just learn to live with it. In the words of Abraham Lincoln, the best thing about the future is it comes one day at a time. In the same essence, as Suman practiced this, she found her way out of the overwhelm and anxiety that she was caught up in. So friends, just like Suman, if you want to learn, cultivate resilience, if you find that you are a vulnerable working professional, finding yourself not being really able to deal with the daily stresses at your workspace, which is not only kind of impacting your professional life, including your personal life, here are my coordinates. Book your free consultation call with me, and I look forward to meet you very soon on a journey of self. Thank you.